Welcome back to part 2 of editing basics for skate videos. In this section I'm going to talk about syncing the footage to music and give you some little tips on how to fine tune that, and also some finishing tips on how to smoothen out your edit ready for output. So if you watched part 1 of this episode, you'll have seen that we've organized all the footage onto the timeline and we've basically edited down a rough cut of the video part before we've laid the music on. In this case I already have the music picked out, so it times up well, but you can see quite easily if you start laying tracks over it, you can see how the duration matches up. When I get a track into the timeline, I like to get a visual idea of how the track's looking. So you want to open up down here in Final Cut. At the bottom there's an option to open up the audio waveforms in the track, and that reveals the sound waves, so you can kind of see quiet points and loud points. And to see this better, I like to open up the track individually, just the music tracks like this. If you adjust the overall track size down here, then all the tracks change size, which is fine for some people, but personally I like to keep things kind of organized small, except for the tracks that I really want to pay attention to the audio waveform. So I'll open up the music track and then maybe even one of the skate audio tracks. The shape of the song is quite visible now. You can see there's a little intro section here at the front end. It kicks in, builds up, builds up. These are obviously some very loud points. There's a quiet point in the middle of the song and it starts to build up again, and some kind of big climax at the end and it stops. If you zoom in on the track a little bit closer detail, then you start seeing the audio popping up for the skate tracks as well. The audio for the skate tracks will have accent points, obviously where the pop of the tail is, and the landing of the trick, or in this case he's slamming, he's hitting the flat bar and crashing. So you can see all that noise right there, and these are the beats of the track that you've zoomed in on right here. So these give you a very visual, clear reference of what you're working with as far as timing and key points that you want to maybe align to the beats or align to the cut points, depending on your preference. So this is where the editing actually starts becoming fun. You've done all the boring work and now you can get in there and start timing things up to the music. I can see that the skate noises don't quite line up with the sound waves below, so I'm going to play that through and kind of give it a listen. And yeah, there's kind of like an end beat right here, which would be nice to have the landing of the trick, which is, as you can see right here on that punctuation point in the audio. So if I bring my playhead over the beat that I want to time it to, there's a handy little tool in Final Cut, and I'm sure other editing software has something similar. It's called the slip tool. The reason why the slip tool is really handy is because you don't have to change the in and out points of the edit, which might be fine for you. You can get in there and drag just the contents of the clip left and right, and as you can see, as you do that, there's a ghost image of the entire clip, and this shows the parts of the footage that go beyond the cut points, so you know how much you're working with. So just slide it on over from where it was originally placed to line up with that beat, and it's a very quick move without adjusting the in and out points of the overall edit. Sometimes when you're involved in an edit and you just want to make a small adjustment with a cut point, for example like this, I want to make this cut point here move over a few frames to where this beat point is, but I don't want to affect the rest of the edit, so I just want to move that cut point slightly. Now I could drag one end over and then drag the other end over, that's a couple of clicks, but a shortcut to doing that is using the roll tool. It's over here in the toolbox. You can get to it with a shortcut by just pressing the letter R, and with this tool on, you can adjust the cut point to wherever you want it to be, depending on how much media is left at each end of the clip. Another useful tool when you're trying to synchronize the footage to the music is to add markers to the music track. That way there's key points laid out before you start even lining up the clips. The way you do that in Final Cut is to find the points in the track that you like. For example, right here we have a distinct change in the music where it kind of goes quiet and then it kicks back in. So on that beat, if I select the clip, I press M and I get a marker on the clip. If I hadn't selected the clip, the marker would go on the timeline, which kind of doesn't really help, because if you move the audio track around, then that marker's not going to move with it. So I like to put the markers in the audio track themselves. If you want to quickly put markers pretty much at every beat or every key beat, you can just play it through with the track selected and you click on the letter M as you're playing, and that'll add a marker every time you hit a beat, or hopefully your timing's right and it'll be hopefully synchronized. So you can see already we've got a series of markers that line up nicely with the beats just by playing it through once. So have fun editing the footage to the music. Getting that all synced up is probably the most fun part of the process. Once everything's timed up the way you want it, the next step is to do some audio mixing, getting it polished up ready for output. The first thing I want to do is make sure that the music track isn't peaking out too loud. So I'll turn off the ambient tracks so I can only hear the audio coming from the music track, and I check over here on the levels to make sure it doesn't peak into the reds. If the track was too loud, you can see it peaking into the reds right around here. That's not a good sign. Basically I try and go as loud as I can without it getting too close to the reds. The next step, once you've set the levels on the music track, is to get in and start adjusting the ambient skate noises so they equal out. In order to make adjustments to the ambient audio or the skate audio, I'll go ahead and turn those tracks back on obviously, but then I'll also turn off the music track temporarily so I can get a good gauge of how it's sounding. Typically I'll probably bring the audio level of skate sounds down to anywhere from sort of -4 to -9 depending on how loudly it was recorded. And then another thing I like to do when I'm getting in here and doing this audio is to mix the cuts, do a little audio transition from one cut to the next. You can hear from this good example right here, he lands a trick and then it goes quiet, and then the next trick comes in quite loud and quite abruptly. If I play it through, you can hear a good example of that. So in order to smoothen out that edit, I'll add a little audio transition right here in the middle of the cut point. To do that, I go to my effects, drag the audio transition over and dump it in the middle of the cut point. This way it transitions the audio from one track to the next, and if you listen through it again, it should play a little bit smoother and dissolve from one audio to the next, making the cut point that much easier, actually on the eye I feel, even though it's just on the ear. So again, you can hear it with the transition. And you get a little bit of lead in of the audio before the cut point, so it's nice and smooth, and here it is without the transition. If you're applying the audio transition to multiple clips, as you probably will throughout the whole edit, I like to just copy the transition over here by hitting Apple C or Command C to copy, and then if you align your playhead onto the seam of the first cut and just paste, it drops it right in there, and you can quickly use the arrow down key and jump to the next one, paste, jump to the next one, paste, down, paste, arrow, paste, arrow, paste. As you can see, you can apply this transition throughout an edit really quickly this way. So your edit's almost done at this point. The timing's looking good, the audio's mixed smoothly. The only last things you might want to do is add some titles and color correction if you feel the need, but we'll cover those in future episodes of In Focus. For now, hopefully some of these basic video editing techniques will help some of you just starting out learning to edit skate videos. But skate videos have a lot of room for creativity, so feel free to take it and run with it. He finishes this little line going out the frame to the right. Right.
And I like wash my foot off, and I'm looking around, and David's underwear is like in the corner.